Welcome back to another Train Tuesday. I'm your host, Jim Wiggin, and I'm going to wait and see who we get to show up here at the Athens station. Got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today. We're going to be stuck in the world of Genesis, and no, I don't mean that band. I mean the actual locomotives and actually cabooses this week. So let's see who we got showing up here today. We've got Leo, Ezekiel, Sean, Bob, Eric, Kevin, Kyle. Let's see, we got Frederick, we got Joe, we got Brandon, we've got a James, we've got Ted, Steve, and we have Amy, Joel, Maurice, and let's see, Pat, Tom, Gregory. A lot of guys showing up. A lot of guys want to see a lot about the F units apparently today. Thomas, good afternoon to you too, sir. Matt Olson, John, thank you for that. Western States Railroading, Bruce, Michael, and Logan. Great. I'm going to move this mic here down a little bit so it's not as much in the way. All right, George, welcome to the show. Alex, more UP for our glorious overlords. I don't know. What do y'all think about that? Quinn, Jason, Bob, Anders. We got folks joining us from all over the place. We've got Gaylord, Quinn, and let's see, we've got Kevin, Nachos. You're making me hungry. And John. All right. Well, it looks like we've got some great fans here today, and hopefully I don't disappoint you with what we've got planned here. So, on Friday we talked about everything that's coming out for April. And I mean, we're only today and tomorrow, and then it's April. It's hard to believe that April is here. So I know one of my biggest things that I do to initiate a newer, warmer season is I go rail fanning. And so we'll see how many others of you out there are going to start doing some rail fanning either this week or maybe during the weekend. And I won't be seeing any F units, though. But we talked about these a little bit on Friday. We kind of went through the whole range of what we're coming out with April. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, I've got a lot of info for you because these are really cool. There's a lot of cool information about the F units that we're doing this for this month because normally, most of the F units, when they're modeled in their prime as they were in the 40s into the 50s. And we're actually doing stuff from the 60s and 70s this time around. This was kind of like the last few years. This was the twilight of the F units on Class 1 railroads. So really interesting time. We're also going to talk about the International Car Company's caboose. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Prime for Grime Contest that we got going on. And then we're going to have some fun Q&A. And I think we're going down to Texas today to go rail fanning. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And what I'll do is, like I always do, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to start with the F units. Now, as most of you know, the EMD F unit was probably one of the most successful streamlined locomotives of its time. It was a nice streamlined locomotive that went really well with the passenger trains of the day. And they pretty much hit their peak in the 1940s into the 1950s. Yeah, about the 1960s, however, a lot of them started to be used for secondary and branch line and even freight, even though most of them were originally designed for passenger. So let's see. Here we are. We're going to go all the way to the beginning. Because the first line that we're going to talk about is the Bessemer and Lake Erie. We've not offered these before. These have not been offered before in the Genesis line, especially in this paint scheme and for this era. This is a 1960s era paint scheme. Now, like what I always do, I'm going to make sure everybody can see this okay by go ahead and bringing that up a little bit for y'all to see. So the Bessemer and Lake Erie, I mean, pretty interesting railroad. They were an early adopter of diesels. And in fact, by 1953, they were pretty much completely dieselized, many of which were these F units and some SD70s. But by the 1960s, these units that we're showing here, they were mainly used on secondary and branch lines. They could be found in all kinds of service throughout, mainly parts around Illinois, all the way into Pennsylvania. And like I said, they were pretty much secondary units at this point. This was their second life. Most of these F units, like I said, when they came out in their glory back in the early days, the 1940s, 1950s, they were the futuristic streamlined locomotives of the future. Not too far down the road by the 1960s, well, they were already starting to become older and outdated. Many railroads went ahead and rebuilt them or modernized them. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the B and LE, they pretty much put these to work on the secondary and branch lines. Now, as you can see, we're offering these in both the A and the B units. So if you're operating in the 1960s into the early 1970s, these locomotives are perfectly acceptable for your layout. So we'll go down, and here's something. Here's the Western Maryland. And I mean, this is probably one of the most interesting paint schemes of the time. These locomotives were painted in what many people called the circus paint scheme. It was a really catchy paint scheme, the red, white, and black. And believe it or not, these lasted well into the Chessie era. These worked with the Chessie Railroad. However, none of them were painted in the Chessie paint scheme. Not that yellow, blue, and red, or vermilion, I should say. They lasted right through the 1970s in this paint scheme. So if you just got to have an F unit and you're modeling Chessie, or you're modeling the late Western Maryland just before Chessie came about, these are perfect for that. Now, there's something I want to show all of you here, is take a look very carefully at numbers 51 and 52. Now, these are F3s. Now, to somebody just casually looking at these, you might think, well, these are F7s. I can tell because it doesn't have the chicken wire grill, and it's got those 4 louvers or air filters on the side of the car body. And you'd be almost correct. One thing that we've found as modelers is sometimes things aren't what they appear. Now, keep in mind, these locomotives were onto their second lives, if you will. And a lot of railroads rebuilt their F units, and Western Maryland was no different. They essentially rebuilt their F3 units to the same standards as an F7. And therefore, you can see they've got the flat pancake style exhaust fans and some of the other spotting features of an F7. But in reality, they were rebuilt F3s. Other railroads like the Maine Central had something very similar, except that they were late phase 4 F units. And so their late F3 units actually look like an F7 on the outside. Internally, of course, there were some differences. So for somebody that might not know, even though these look like F7s, they're actually F3s. They were rebuilt in the late 1940s, if I remember correctly. Now, we're offering the 2A units by themselves, and we're also offering it as a AB setup, as you can see down here. And of course, like with all the Genesis locomotives, they're available with and without sound. With the sound units, they come with the Tsunami 2 decoders, and really neat, paint scheme on a really already cool railroad. And definitely somebody that's modeling the 1960s into the 1970s would be a really cool lash up to throw in with your Chessie or your late Western Maryland layout. Now, here's one a little bit closer to the folks out there on the East Coast. I mean, Western Maryland, of course, they were out there kind of, but this is one that a lot of folks from the New York and Pennsylvania area If you're old enough, remember fondly, Erie Lackawanna. And it was one of those mergers where it just seemed to make sense. I mean, right down to the logo. The logo was a catchy way of showing the merger between the two lines. And this was one of the really nicer paint schemes of the time. So what we've got here is we've got the F7A and B units, and 7121 and 7122, that set that you see there, the A and B set, they were originally Erie locomotives. Whereas 712 and 712B, which was, let's see, originally F7A and F7B, 6111 and number 6352 were originally from the DLW. So they have a mixed heritage. They've come from both the Erie and the DLW. So they're going to have some subtle differences, not too much. You got that really cool paint scheme that really was an optimistic paint scheme. Unfortunately, we all know what happened. Erie Lackawanna by the end of the 1960s had fallen on hard times and eventually became a part of Conrail. So these only lasted pretty much into the 1960s. So if you're modeling that neck of the woods in the 1960s, this would definitely be a good subject material for you. Now, we can't do F units, it seems, without doing a warbonnet. I mean, this is probably the most iconic paint scheme on probably the most iconic locomotive. The lines were just perfect for this paint scheme. And this is a little bit different. This is what Santa Fe called their modernized setup with their F units. Again, if you look at the top F unit, right above the B unit, it is specified as an F3A, but again, it has spotting features that are very similar to the F7. However, you'll notice that that one has the older style exhaust fans. It does not have the pancake fans like later rebuilds or later phases of the F3 into the F7s. Now, some of these actually got a simulated stainless steel applied to the sides of the car body on both the A units and the B units. And depending on the prototype, ours will have that. You can see in the illustrations here, you can kind of tell which ones have that simulated stainless steel applied to the units. And each one of these is different. If you take a look at the different details that we've put into these, they are based specifically on that locomotive, specifically on that unit. And by the way, these represent locomotives that were modernized from like 1959 onward. So if you're modeling late 1950s into the 60s, these are perfectly well suited for that. Coming up next, in the middle of the heartland of the United States, we've got Missouri Pacific. And Missouri Pacific was a cool railroad, and they were also a very budget conscientious railroad. So their F units, if you look carefully, all that skirting around the fuel tanks and such is gone. Now, remember when these came out, you know, that skirting was part of the design of the stream-like attitude, if you will, of the locomotive. And while it looked great, and it probably did have some aerodynamic features to it for passenger trains, not so much for freight. And maintenance guys really didn't like to fool around with all that stuff. So you can see with the Missouri Pacific ones, they've been removed. All the pretty fairing is completely removed. They've got their Jenks blue paint scheme with the buzzsaw logo. And these have actually got the Texas and Pacific reporting marks. But those side skirts, long gone. And I'm sure the guys in the shop that had to maintain these were rejoicing with that fact. These guys soldiered on well into the 1970s, all parts of the Midwest and down all the way down into Texas. So if you're a Missouri Pacific, we haven't really done a Missouri Pacific release in a while. So I'm sure you Missouri Pacific guys have probably are breathing a sigh of relief that we finally got something out here. And I mean, this is really cool. Again, 1970s was just a really cool era in railroad history. And then we're going to finish up with the Norfolk and Western. Now, this one has a special place in my heart, mainly because next town over, Norfolk and Western, and before that, Wabash served that town. Now, these are all former Wabash units. And one of the cool things is I've got some pictures that I'm going to share with you guys here in a little bit that Tony Cook from White River Publications has shared with us. And I know you guys are going to enjoy these because the cool thing is most of the pictures I'm going to show you are the same ones that we're offering in the Genesis line. So let's see if we can switch things up a little bit. And I'm going to bring those pictures up here in a second. Now, again, the Wabash had that really cool paint scheme, the Bluebird paint scheme. It was a really nice blue and gray. Well, by the 1960s, Norfolk and Western had patched a lot of those. And they weren't quite as elegant, but they're still pretty cool to see. So let me go ahead and share those pictures from Tony. All right, there we go. So check this out. This goes back a ways. So this is actually the first one that we're offering, 3725. It's an F7. It was a former Wabash unit, and you can definitely tell its heritage. They didn't really completely repaint it. They left it pretty much as is. They got rid of the imitation aluminum on the side, which that Wabash paint scheme originally had. And this is quite a few years after that. So what they've done is they've gotten rid of that imitation aluminum, which would have been on the very bottom of the car body. They've painted it the same color blue, and they've applied the Norfolk and Western name, and of course the now famous N&W hamburger logo, both to the car body sides and to the front. Still, as simple as it is, it's actually a pretty nice catchy paint scheme. This picture here was taken in April of 1973. Here's that same unit, a little bit cleaner. This was taken just about a year later, March 25th of 1974. This was photographed in Sloan, New York. And again, this is the same locomotive that we're offering in the Genesis line. Pretty cool. I mean, that picture seems a lot better. It's a little bit cleaner than the former picture that we showed. Now we're going to go a little bit further down. And believe it or not, Norfolk and Western was still using these as late as 1979. Here's the same locomotive, 3725, in a rather interesting framed picture. You've got such a modern background, and then you've got this older, dare I say, almost dilapidated F unit. And it looks like, I haven't had a chance to really study this picture, but that looks like a high hood Jeep 38 or 38-2 in their current paint scheme. So yeah, these F units soldiered on right up until the late 70s. If you're a Norfolk and Western modeler, you probably have a case to say even further than that, based on your individual research. But just a cool example of how, a locomotive that was probably built in 47, 48 is found second life on these Class 1 railroads. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. It's also a testament, too, is just what a workhorse these covered wagons really were. So coming up next, we're a slightly different unit. This is 3697. This is also one that we're offering. This one was photographed in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, 1969. This has the more simplified color scheme. There is no two-tone to it. It is all just one color. 3657, of course, is another one that we're offering. This one was photographed outside of Windsor, Ontario, November 7th, 1974. Again, very simple paint scheme, but effective. You know, it was a nice blue and yellow, which was very common in the 1970s. These F units, you know, when they were first produced, they had very glamorous paint schemes in most cases. By the 1960s, 1970s, due to budgetary concerns and maintenance, those flashy paint schemes slowly gave way to a more simplified paint scheme. Jim Boyd was on the scene to get this locomotive here. This is 3658. This is not one that we're offering, but it's very similar to 3725 that we're offering. Jim caught this in 1975. Again, you can see the example how it was primarily just patched out. There's no question as the heritage of this unit. 3659, one that we are offering. This was also taken at Windsor, Ontario. I don't have a date for this one, unfortunately, but it shows you just how rugged and how long these locomotives were in service, and definitely a really cool you know, era of our railroad heritage, really. And I'm seeing some good comments out there. Yeah, these are great references for weathering. These locomotives, like I said, when they first came out, they were, you know, they were like the Tesla of its time. You know, right now the Tesla is all new and it's the coolest thing, and it's so modern and looking and everything of that nature. Well, the F units were no different. They were extremely futuristic for their time, and of course, they had these really cool paint schemes. And again, by the 1970s, if they hadn't already been traded in for other units, they soldiered on. In this case, pretty much everything we've shown you is a Class 1. And, you know, it was not uncommon to see these guys doing all kinds of different service, depending on the railroad they work for. So really cool. If you have wanted something a little bit older, you're not really into the, you know, 6-axle modern power, these Genesis units are perfect for you. I mean, I know myself, I've got a soft spot for the F units. They were a very important step in the modern day locomotives. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those pictures. I'm going to go back to sharing the models that we're going to have. So as you saw from those pictures, we're offering those same ones, this 3725 at the top, the patched unit. And then, of course, Norfolk and Western, they kind of went back and forth. They went with just a simplified black, very similar paint scheme. They also did their blue paint scheme as well. In the end, the black pretty much became the standard. And ironically now, Norfolk Southern is same color. Nope, never shared that screen. I apologize for that. Let me try that again. There we go. And I'll minimize myself so you guys can see that. So we're offering all of these units here, and it gives you a nice wide range of locomotives to fill up your shops. You know, if maybe you're modeling Decatur, Illinois in the 1960s or 70s, here you go. Here's some of your motive power. All right, I'll leave those up for a little bit. I'm going to come back on screen here and check some comments. I want to see if anybody's got some questions on any of the F units, it's kind of an exciting release. It's been about a year or so since we released the F units, and we wanted to do something a little bit different this time. We wanted to give you guys that model the 60s and 70s, a chance to run something a little bit different. I'm seeing some comments. Anthony says, yeah, later 1960 schemes are boring compared to the as delivered colors. Absolutely. No question about it. Let's take, for example, since we've got Norfolk and Western on the screen here, let's take, for example, the Wabash F units when they left the factory. There was 3 primary colors, plus you had the imitation aluminum applied to the sides of the car body, fancy script writing, things of that nature. And yeah, they looked great. They looked elegant. Now, think about this for a second. Imagine the vehicle that you drive almost every day, depending on where you're at. Imagine it being as complicated as a paint scheme as a locomotive. Now imagine how hard it is to keep that clean. Now imagine, back in those days, image was everything. The railroads were out there, and you wanted to have a nice clean look. You don't want your car to have rock chips and everything else. Imagine touching that all up all the time or keeping it clean. That's why in the 1960s, the change was to go to more simplified paint schemes. And in some cases, like Norfolk and Western, Missouri Pacific, their answer was a 1-color scheme and wording and a logo. And you're right, as far as compared to what these locomotives would have looked like in the day they were delivered, yeah, they're kind of boring, but it was more of a maintenance and cost type of thing. And if you're somebody that models the 1970s or 1960s even, these are still going to be on your wish list, I'm sure. Now, these are available for pre-order till the end of the month, which is April 30th. Get a little bit of a head start on these because we're just starting 2 days before April. So pretty exciting. I've always liked F units. They're just kind of a cool looking locomotive. These are Genesis, so they're going to have all those details that you're used to. Great running, great pulling locomotives. And yeah, it's just a cool locomotive. I know a lot of the stuff that I model in the 1970s, there's some F units in there, and they definitely don't look as nice as they did when they came from the factory, but definitely. Let's see. I'll take some comments here before we go on to the next thing. Bob says, there's nothing like a grimy F7A on the freight train. Remember them well. Bob, sounds like you maybe operated some of those or you've seen a few. Yeah, a lot of them lasted, in my neck of the woods, they lasted right up until the mid 70s or so. In fact, fun fact, we have a railroad not too far from us. They just stopped using them, but we had a short line here in central Illinois that still used F units, and it was pretty cool. I wish I'd had a chance to get pictures of it when they were working. All right. I'm just going to check and see if there's any other questions or comments on the F units here. Kevin's got some information for us. Kevin says the blue and yellow scheme was the first scheme that the Norfolk and Western came out with before the merger between the nickel plate and the Wabash. Interesting. Let's see. Any other comments or questions on the F units? All right. Well, cool. We're going to go on to the next item. Is we're offering the ICC cabooses. We're doing something a little bit different this time. We've offered a lot of West Coast and Midwest. We did a little bit different this time. Let me go ahead and get that screen set up. And we'll go ahead and share that. There we go. Let's go all the way to the top. Hey, check it out. Norfolk and Western caboose. Isn't that a coinky dink? Now, it just so happened that when we were working on these cabooses, we wanted to do another run of F units, and we thought, hey, let's do the Norfolk and Western ICC cabooses. And it just made sense. I mean, for this run, that's exactly what we're going to do, is the Norfolk and Western, and we've got some other ones that we'll talk about. Interesting stuff about the ICC company. ICC was the International Car Company. It was originally known as the New City Car Company, and it was founded in Kenton, Ohio, back in 1924. Now, International Car Company, they were famous for making their cabooses. In fact, by 1941, they just specialized in the production of cabooses. And they had a great thing going from 1941 all the way up until the late 70s. Around 1981, the plant that was located in Kenton, Ohio, had about 200 employees, and they were building not just cabooses, but other freight cars as well. And well, unfortunately, the handwriting was on the wall. Anybody that models the early into the mid 80s knows exactly what's going on. And yeah, by 1983, February of 83, the Kenton plant shut down. It closed its doors forever. Operations were then moved to Pacific Car and Foundry in Renton, Washington. And that chapter of railroad history closed with it. Fortunately, we have these models that we can admire and use in our layout. And let's talk about these real quick. So like I said, the first one that we're offering is this Norfolk and Western caboose. These are offered both with DCC and lights as well as DCC sound and lights. The N&W C20 class caboose does have the friction bearing trucks. It has the details such as the propane tank and basket. Look carefully at the cupola. You'll see the air horn. This is great for shoving freight cars. This was very common in branch lines and smaller lines that didn't have a runaround situation, and also perfect if your motive power that day happens to be an F unit. Talk to anybody that operated an F unit and tried to do switching with it. I've talked to at least one gentleman that said it was not his favorite locomotive to do switching with. We're offering this in 3 different road numbers. Check this out. We're also offering the Pittsburgh and West Virginia. Same thing. We're offering that in 3 different road numbers. And it's equipped with the DCC and lights, or you can get it with the sound as well as the DCC and lights. Now, here we go. You guys asked for them, and we delivered them. Seaboard Airline. We have got all these different versions of the Seaboard Airline for you. Each one has a different safety slogan. And if you model, 1960s into the 70s, this is perfect. Just like the ones before it, we're offering it in these following road numbers. It looks like we've got 4. And remember, these all have their own individual safety slogans. So each one is different. And these are available, again, with DCC sound or without sound. All of them have the DCC and lights. So there you have it. A lot of Genesis stuff. And just, if you're modeling the 60s or 70s, this is your month. Now, we've got some stuff for the modern guys this month. We've got some stuff for both HO and N-scale guys. We'll talk about those later in later Train Tuesdays. I'm going to take a look and see if there is any comments or questions about the ICC cabooses. Split Rock. Yes, thank you. Well, it just happened. It just happened that we were running that particular prototype and we could find that railroad. And you know, there's just enough people that have been using our comment product suggestion email, and that's why you're seeing the Seaboard Airline cabooses. We had a lot of requests for those. Todd, nothing 80s related in engines. Don't give up. Don't give up. We did the super modern stuff for the first few months, and we got those guys all set, and now we're kind of going into, it's kind of a funny locomotive. It's technically a transition era locomotive, but the paint schemes definitely put it firmly in the 60s and 70s. But don't give up, Todd. We've got stuff we're working on. All right. Okay. I'm just kind of going through these comments, see if anybody had any questions or anything like that. All right. Well, great. Well, the next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is, as you know, we're right in the middle of our Prime for Grime contest. In fact, I'm starting to get some submissions in, and I want to share those with you. Maybe inspire you guys to, go ahead, try out the contest. It's fun. If anything, you're going to have a really nice model for your layout or your module or anything of that stuff. So I think I've got some pictures here. Let me check. I don't know. I don't see them right now. Now I've got some pictures. I wanted to share the Prime for Grime contest with anybody that doesn't know what it is. We just started this about a couple of weeks ago. And the Prime for Grime contest basically allows you to go out, pick up a boxcar, and weather it to your heart's content, and might be able to win something too. Now, I got a few entries in this past week. I want to share these with you. Let's see, who's our first entry? Our first entry was Jackie Brown. Now, she sent her before picture. That's very important. This is the boxcar that she's chosen. It's very important if you enter this contest that once you've purchased the selected, one of the selected boxcars, that you take a picture like this. Then, after a lot of work, Jackie came up with this. Now, I don't know about you, but Jackie definitely nailed the Prime for Grime look. I think this is a great example of what a freight car should look like on a layout. This is a modern freight car spotted at some type of warehouse or facility, and really nice. Look at the beat up grime. Look at the writing on it. Looks like some type of graffiti is on there. Just beautiful car. Really nicely done. So I want to thank Jackie for sharing that with everybody. Now she's in the contest. She sent her email in, and again, what you want to do is go to the Athearn website and select the Prime for Grime banner that we have on our homepage, and the complete rules are there. There are 4 different boxcars you have to choose from. Now, we did that so that everybody stays on the same page. We don't want somebody pulling out an old blue box model from 1960 that they weathered. We want to get everybody involved. So if you're a seasoned veteran, just go ahead and pick up one of those boxcars. And if you're a beginner, don't worry, stick around. I'm going to share something with you guys that have never weathered before, to show you how easy it is. I also got a submission from Thomas. Thomas sent in his. Here's the before picture. He's got a really nice looking layout too, by the way. And here's what it looked like when he was done. Check this out. Right down to the graffiti on the side. I mean, that is just, this is exactly like you would see on any class 1 or branch line or short line or anything of that nature. This is some great work. So if this doesn't inspire you to enter the contest, man, I don't know what will. We've already started to get some really great submissions in, and we'll share them as time goes on. Now, you have till April 19th to submit your pictures. And like I said, just go to the Athearn website, go to the homepage, select the Prime for Grime banner, and the complete details are there for you to follow. There are 4 different box cars for you to choose from. And when you do purchase your box car, like I said, make sure you take a picture of it, just like Thomas and Jackie have done. Take a before picture and then take an after picture. And yeah, make sure you've got your airbrush fired up, your weathering tools all fired up, ready to go. You know, and I'm thinking that, you know, these are our first entries. I can't wait to see what else is out there. Maybe you're working on yours now. Let us know in the comments section. Are you working on your Prime for Grime? Because we're looking excited. Now, the other thing, too, is we will share your work on our social media program. You'll see it on both Instagram and Facebook. So you get some bragging rights between your buddies in the train club. That's always a good thing. Another thing, too, for everybody that gets their entries in by April 19th, they'll be judged by the Athearn team. And the 2 runners-up will win new freight cars. And the grand prize winner will not only get their choice of a Genesis locomotive. We've listed the locomotives on the website that are eligible for the grand prize winning. But you'll have a chance to come on here on Train Tuesday and talk with us and let us know how you did it. I mean, if you won the grand prize, we want to know how you did your weathering, because a lot of us are going to want to emulate what you did on our own layout. So keep at it, guys. Now, remember, for the new guys out there that would like to do this contest, but they're not sure where to start, I want to share something with you. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. You remember James from Hybrid Hobby. He's done some great reviews for us recently, and he's come on the show a couple of times. Well, he's got a new video out on his YouTube channel, and it's basically a step-by-step how to weather one of these freight cars. Now, let's see. We're going to have to watch the ad, of course, aren't we? Even though I had pre-played that earlier. So we'll skip ahead a little bit here. Now, as you can see, he's got one of the same freight cars. And he goes ahead and he shows you just some different techniques. He's applying dull coat there. And here he's using weathering chocks. Oh, I apologize. Nobody can see this. Let's try this again. I'm not sure why we're having so much trouble today with screen captures. There we go. So anyways, this is at Hybrid Hobby. This is James over at Hybrid Hobby. And he's showing you basically step-by-step on how to do your own weathering for the Prime for Grime contest. So go over to Hybrid Hobby after the show and check it out. It's about a 10-minute video, and it's really easy. He goes, like I said, step-by-step using one of the cars that we're using for the contest. And definitely you're going to want to check that out. Get some free time. I know we got a little bit of time before the weekend, but he does a really good job explaining the different techniques. Here you can see he's applying a wash. And if any of you are out there and thinking, haven't I seen this car somewhere? Yeah, James was nice enough to actually weather a freight car for us for the material for this contest. No, Todd, he's not. It looks like coffee or hot chocolate, but no, it's some kind of concoction he's mixed up. He tells you in the video how to make that. But if you want to weather with coffee, I mean, the worst thing that can happen is it'll keep you awake. So like I said, that is James with Hybrid Hobby. Did that video for us. It's about 10 minutes long or so. And it's a great it's a great video, and it's for somebody that's never done any type of weathering whatsoever. Just go head on over to Hybrid Hobby and check out his video. And it's real simple and it's a lot of fun. And the nice thing about weathering is you can't fix any kind of mistake. I mean, you can fix anything that you do. And I mean, let's think about it. In the real world, weathering isn't exactly a perfect science. It definitely follows some type of physics to it, but just take a look at some of the freight cars that are out there and use them as inspiration. Well, last thing that we're going to do before we go down to Fort Worth, Texas, I want to let the HO guys know what's coming, or actually what's in stock. And I wanted to let you guys know about it because they might be going really quickly. For those guys that need to move some bulk material, I want to show you what is in stock. They just came in stock, and they're not going to last too long. So these just came in. These are the Ready to Run Series HO Scale ACF 2970 covered hoppers. Here I'm showing the Union Pacific one. And we've got these in Rock Island. We've also got them in BNSF. This is the early BNSF. And these are great for any small switching layout. Check the car that we have available. They are available right now through Athearn. So if you are looking for a covered hopper, talk to your dealer. They can order these for you. Now, they do go quick. Usually when these come in, they do go quick. So talk to your dealer and get these in. But I wanted to throw those up there so you guys knew those are in stock right now. And go to athearn.com and do a search for Ready to Run series covered hoppers, and you can see which ones are there. And again, they're perfect for small industrial switching layouts all the way to club layouts. Just a great little car. I know for my project layout, I plan on getting a few because I have a bakery that I'm building, and finding the right cars to bring in, flour, that would be the perfect car for it. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and go to Fort Worth, Texas, and we'll take some Q&A. Let's see. And, earlier today, Fort Worth, Texas was extremely busy. Let's hope it still is. Huh. Well, the highway's busy. Go ahead and put that on a full screen so y'all can see that. No trains yet, but there will be. The trains will return, and in greater numbers. All right, with that, let's kick back a little bit and see what's on your mind. See what questions you have for us. Let's see. Tim Peters, hey, there you go. Sharp eyes there. Tim's talking about the Rock Island one that we're offering that is available right now. The Rock Island car is labeled food service only. Yeah, that's important. You don't want to, you don't want some type of chemical that's for agriculture in a food service only car. Jonathan, he says, once again, Jim, thank you for showing the old CN Riverside Yard in Windsor. I remember when I was little in the late 80s, that yard, until that yard was removed in 95. Oh, you're welcome, Jonathan. Not a problem. It's always neat to see these locations, and sometimes the modern location isn't as good as our memories, but it's always good to kind of revisit those places. Let's see. Split rock. Do the F units come with full cab interiors? They do come with a cab interior. They're not like as in a full cab. I mean, there's some limitations just the way we've done the frame and stuff, but they do come with an interior. And I've seen a lot of guys really further detail them, but the basis is there. Let's see. Kalen says HO scale and MBTA stuff. It's funny you say that because you must have been here Friday. We had somebody asking for MBTA. And you're right. There's not a lot of MBTA out there. I know Metra gets a lot of love and Caltrain gets a lot of love. But that may be due to how many modelers do the MBTA. But it's something that if you're really want to see Athearn make, go ahead and please send us an email through the product suggestion link. Let's see, John. Jim, Athearn shirts, please. We are working on them. Trust me. We are working on them. Now, we've got the T-shirts. Remember the T-shirts that we came out with when we released the SD70 ACUs? Those are Norfolk Southern and CP Rail. We're hoping to have those available for sale by summer. And let us know in the comments section. Would you like to see some different T-shirts? Would you like to see a polo shirt? Maybe you go to the club meetings and you'd like a shirt kind of represent your favorite brand. Let us know. We're open to doing all kinds of different things for you. We talked about banners the other day, and banners are something else that we're going to start working on so that you can put those in your train room. Kaylin, it was you? Okay. All right. Yeah, put that comment in our product suggestion email. Camera thinks it sees something, but baseball jersey. Oh, that's kind of cool, actually. I like that idea, but I'm a baseball fan, so that'd be kind of cool, though. Maybe like a retro, kind of a white shirt with blue sleeves type. That'd be kind of cool. Let's see. Guys, I got some good comments today. I want to throw these out there as soon as I find them. Hockey jersey. Yeah, I've seen that. I've definitely seen that. Tim Peters, that's a cool comment. I'm going to throw it up there. The MKT units and the XICG would be a great seller for Prime for Grime. Yeah, that is a great suggestion. I highly recommend you throw that in the product suggestion box. I would be all for that. If you don't know what he's talking about, do a quick Google search. Yeah, they'd definitely be a great Prime for Grime subject. Eric says, did Norfolk and Western ever purchase any F7s, or were they just get them all from Wabash? Well, Norfolk Western fans would know better, but for my knowledge, I only know the Wabash end of the deal. Most of the F units in the Norfolk and Western were of Wabash heritage. Wabash actually had quite a few F units. Blue baseball jersey with yellow sleeves. Okay, I dig that. Nice big Athearn logo, and we'll have to look into that. Any color but pink. It's funny when you say pink, and I'm talking trains, I think of those covered hoppers that were pink. Dennis Daniels, anything ICG would be good for Prime for Grime. Yeah, you're not kidding. You could even say that too about Chicago Central, because Chicago Central got a lot of the hand-me-downs from ICG. It also makes it great for operations, Chad. Definitely. Let's see. You guys are busy today working on stuff. I mean, that's the one bad thing about this time of year is, you know, we're not as stuck inside. So yeah, the honeydew list might come out, and you might have to start doing the outdoor activities. So it kind of limits our. John, I'm gonna grab your question. I don't like to see the tears. What happened with the N scale 4014 proprietary version? Yeah, I just blew that. Sorry. I cannot find one to order or buy anywhere. Okay, so those were announced last year, John. And they are due to arrive probably the end of April, beginning of May. So you're not going to find them anywhere on a shelf. They haven't gotten here yet. They will be here soon. What you need to do is if you've got a dealer in your neck of the woods, you need to talk to him and see. Last I knew, I don't think they're completely sold out, but there has been times in the past where stuff literally sells out before it even gets here. So talk to your dealer sooner than later and see if he can talk to our DC and get one of those set aside for you. But we're going to start seeing them here pretty soon. So don't give up. All the guys out there looking for the big boys and N scale, they're going to be here late April, early May. We'll have more details as they become available. Here's a great question from Fred. He says, was the first run of Genesis ICC cabooses a success? And if so, what other Genesis line cabooses can we expect in the future and what railroads? Well, Fred, yes, to answer your first question, they were a success. They were an astounding success. It's clear to us that most model railroaders now demand that type of detail and options in their rolling stock and non-revenue rolling stock. And so, yeah, we did great with that first run. To answer your second question, what type of cabooses and what railroads will we see in the future? Really, that depends on you guys. You saw with the Seaboard Airline cabooses that we announced, that was mainly due to your input. We want to see what you guys want. So if there are certain cabooses that you would like to see in the Genesis line, by all means, let us know. Because as you well know, as with anything that's in production, there's a lot of work that goes into making a new model, and we want to make sure that we're getting as many of you the caboose that you're looking for. So definitely keep us posted as well. Let's see. There's a lot of love for ICG. John says ICG Prime for Grime is pretty much an as-delivered paint scheme. Yeah, pretty much. And if you are familiar with the Chicago Central, same thing. Because again, they got a lot of. I remember rail fanning the Chicago Central outside of Rockford, Illinois, in the '90s, and seeing just a rainbow. Well, I should say a chipped rainbow array of GP10s and just various types of paint, and they were all Prime for Grime. It's a pretty interesting railroad. If you're not familiar with it, check out Chicago Central. Do a quick Google search. It was a neat little spinoff of the IC. Let's see. Gregory. Western Maryland Jeep 7 and Jeep 9 chop. Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Not your typical chop nose 7 or 9. Very Very interesting units. For anybody that's not familiar with the Western Maryland chop nose Jeeps, they aren't your typical chop nose Jeeps. They kept their number boards in them and everything else, and they're very unique looking. That's a possibility. Again, anything like that, please let us know in our suggestion email. Bobby says he's put in his request for a Southern Bay window caboose. Good suggestion. Let's see. Kevin says, hey, Athearn stickers would be cool too. We're working on them. You read my mind, Kevin. Most of us that go, if you're part of a modular club, like I'm part of a modular club, we have our toolboxes that have all of our stuff that we need. Yeah, you're going to have stickers on there for stuff. Why not? Dennis, I like the way you think. ICG long porch cabooses. Yeah. Definitely put that in. Mr. Lauren James, he's here and he says, hey, Jim, we need CN chop nose Jeep 9s and CP ones too. I hear you. We get a lot of requests for those. Hopefully those are going through the proper channels so that our developers are, talking about it. Let's see. I saw a comment pop up. I had to get it. Brad, is this diesel only talk today? Man, you missed it. We were talking about the big boy. That's steam. Yeah, it's pretty much, a lot of diesel talk today, but we've got some exciting stuff coming up. So I keep telling everybody, Athearn, when we do our releases, it's kind of like a radio station. You might turn on the radio and, the song that's on the radio right now might not be your favorite. Rest assured, somebody that's listening to that radio station, that's their favorite song and they're happy. But the next song that comes up might be your favorite. So it's kind of like that. There's so many different things for us to draw from. And each month we try to get a really good selection that will cater to every model railroader. So don't give up. If you haven't seen your locomotive or your diesel or steam locomotive yet, don't give up. We're thinking of everybody. Joe, that's a good question. What are some updated shows that Athearn will be at? So, as most people know, things have been locked down for quite a bit, but things are getting better. There's protocols in place. A lot of the states are opening back up again. There's vaccines available. There's still levels of opening, and we are going to start doing some shows starting this summer. We've got 2 shows that we'll be at. We're going to be at the Spring Creek Open House, July 24th and 25th, and that's in Deschler, Nebraska. That is a great show. That's a show they do once every other year. It's a great open house. We're going to be there, and hopefully I'm going to have something interesting for you guys to not only see, but try out. And if you're into seeing some really good layouts, this is a great show to go to. So you definitely want to see that. And then, of course, we're also going to the St. Louis RPM meet. That's just down the road from us here in Illinois. And it's one of my personal favorite shows. It's a show I've been going to for the last 4 or 5 years, and I personally enjoy it, but we'll be set up there as well. And we can't forget, coming up in the fall up in Milwaukee is Train Fest. That's one of the greatest shows in the country, one of the bigger shows in the country, and we'll be there too. So we're slowly getting back into the show season, and before too long we should be back to normal again, and that way we can all see the cool layouts and talk about trains. Let's see. I just saw another one. John's got a good question. What about a UP484 or a 4664? Any plans for those anytime soon? Well, what I would highly suggest is to go ahead and use that suggestion email. Now, I've seen some comments today and in the past, where's Janik? Where's Jack? We had Jack Ross on the show a couple of weeks ago. I had to pull Jack away because he too was buried under piles of paperwork. Jack, of course, is one of our developers. He's part of the development team over at Athern, and those guys are so busy that I have a hard time grabbing them for 5 or 10 minutes for the show. But let those guys over there know that. Let them know that you're looking for that steam locomotive. Put it in the product suggestion email, and who knows? Kevin, this sounds like a bragging rights. Is Trainfest bigger than Amherst, Jim? Is Amherst bigger than Trainfest? It's the battle of the train shows. East Coast versus Midwest. Oh, man, I'm going to let you guys decide. Let's see. Jonathan, you got a lot of writing there, and I don't want to blow this opportunity to put you up there since you took the time to write all this. Jonathan says, Jim, my friend is requesting Ontario Southland Railway unit number 102. It's a former Essex Terminal Railway. And a fun fact, it's the last EP9, do you mean GP9, built in North America, Algoma Central, unit number 175. Jonathan, yeah, that's pretty cool. And if you've got some inside information, it sounds like you do on that locomotive. You know what I'm going to say? Go over to our suggestion email and definitely let us know about that. It's one of those things that we've probably got the right material to make that locomotive, and it might be a fun one for the next release. Kevin, he's pressuring me. Come on, man. Which one? What are you doing? Man. He probably thinks that since I'm from the East Coast, I'm going to say Amherst. I got a lot of friends in Milwaukee, though, so Milwaukee has butter burgers and beer. Brad, that's a good question / comment. I'm going to put it up there because you had asked about the steam locomotive earlier. Part of the problem with steam locomotives are they are expensive. With pre-orders, we don't know when they're coming and can't save for them if we pre-order something else. So, yeah, and that's a good comment, and let me address it real quick. So part of the reason why we do the pre-orders, like everything that we talked about today, the ICC cabooses and the F units, you have until the end of April to place your order, and typically you have about a year. So those F units, if you were to pre-order with your dealer today, next April 22, you would have those locomotives at the shop. So we totally understand the steam locomotives. They are a very complex model, and they tend to be a little bit more expensive than your average diesel locomotive. So keep track of us. I mean, every beginning of each month, we come out with our new pre-orders. And if you see something that you like, you've usually got about a year to save up for that release. But good comment, good question. I wanted to put it out there for everybody that wanted to know, like Brad. Let's see. Daniel. I'm going to put Daniel up here as soon as I can catch him because the comments are going. Any Chessie Seaboard Jeep unit patch CSX planned? I don't know of any off the top of my head. Doesn't mean anything because, like I said, Janik, Jack, all those guys in development are just super busy. Christian, I'll put yours up there. I wonder what it would take to get a rerun on Conrail GP9Bs. Totally missed out on them. Yeah, that's a shame because when you talk GP9Bs, remember who were the two railroads that had them? You had Pennsylvania Railroad, which is where Conrail got theirs, and of course Union Pacific. We just ran the Union Pacific and Pennsylvania, or I'm sorry, just the Union Pacific B units. Back in December, we announced them. So I would definitely hit up our product suggestion email and see. We'll probably run those again under different lines. We haven't done the Conrail B units in a while, so there's a possibility we might think about it. But if we get some comment or some product suggestion emails, that would definitely help us to make that decision. Ron says Amherst is worth the trip. It's totally worth the trip. It is totally worth the trip. 4 buildings of sheer, unadulterated model railroading bliss. It's amazing. And all these railroad shows around the country, I miss them all. I'm kind of waxing poetic for them because we haven't been to a show in probably over a year in some cases. But each show has their specials, special themes and things of that nature. And Amherst really is worth the trip. If you've never been, definitely head out there. And they are going to be coming back for 2022. We did it virtually this past year, but I've been assured that 2022, we all get to go back. Getting a lot of comments and love for IC and ICG today. So guys, come on, put that in the comment suggestion box. I mean, I'm a transplant, but I still love the early ICG orange and white stuff. It was just cool stuff. They're not going to listen to me. Janek's not going to listen to me because he wants to make sure that we make the right stuff that everybody buys, not just Jim buys. Let's see. Anthony, I don't remember if I put your suggestion up there or not, but I'll put it up there again. New run of the BN45 hub trailer city themes. Those were cool. I remember the prototypes. I don't remember when we ran those last. Tactical Jackalope. I love your name. That's awesome. More N-scale releases, please. Well, don't worry. We are going to have some N-scale stuff. In fact, we have, if you haven't been to our website lately, go ahead and go to athearn.com. There's quite a bit of N-scale in there. And towards the end of this month, we'll talk about some really special N-scale stuff. Tom says he sees some Rock Island blue Jeeps in your future. Yeah, there's always room for blue Jeeps. And fun fact, Rock Island's back. It's now a short line. It's pretty cool. I think they've got a GP15 that's painted up in the old blue and white paint scheme with the big stylized R. It's cool. I always had a soft spot for the Rock Island. Rock Island was kind of like the Boston, Maine of the Midwest. Votes for modern GTW. Did you catch January's pre-orders? It's super modern. It's the Heritage unit, but it is GTW. Let's see. What else do we have? There's a lot of calls for Chessie. I understand that. Chessie's a cool line, or it was a cool line. Just going to go through the comments here real quick. Guys, I apologize. The whole time that I had seen Fort Worth earlier, I'm like, oh, this is easy. Tower 55. Sure. This will be great. There was like trains constantly. And as soon as I bring you guys here, it's nothing here. It's like telling somebody they saw Bigfoot and taking them out to the Pacific Northwest and Bigfoot never shows up. Let me see. Oh, Tom, that's funny. We're talking about Rock Island. Tom says, Rock Island anniversary tomorrow. Yeah, sad day. March 1980. Tom, here's an interesting. Whoops! Wow, man, you guys are moving quick. Here's an interesting fact. So yeah, March 1980, Rock Island, no more, no longer a mighty fine line. Rock Island had a lot of the FMC boxcars in the white, in the blue, with the stylized R. Well, those, those went all over. Now, of course, Chicago Northwestern got a large amount of those. And if you're modeling early 1980s and you're doing CNW, you definitely owe it to yourself to get some Rock Island FMCs and patching them up. But one of those Rock Island boxcars found its way all the way to my neck of the woods, outside of Manchester, New Hampshire, on the Boston and Maine. And ironically enough, on one of the branch lines, the very last train on that branch line was a Rock Island boxcar. Fun fact. See, this is why we're modelers. We know these little weird things like this. Let's see. Well, we've got time to take maybe one or two more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up for today. Now, next week for Train Tuesday, we've got some more Genesis products that we're going to talk about. How many of you remember the tank train? We're going to be talking about the tank train, and the tank train we're offering this time in three different eras. We're offering it in 77 plus, 86 plus, and 2005 plus, and that's a cool articulated tank train. So you'll want to join us for that. And, well, we have to see what else we've got planned. Christian says it's the Conrail 45th anniversary on Thursday. Yeah, man, that's hard to believe the Conrail's gone. That was such a common railroad when I was younger. KC, I see your question. I want to grab it. Jim, when do you think the Dash 9 will arrive? Okay, so there's two Dash 9 pre-orders that we had. We had the Dash 9s last summer that we announced, and that was the first time we announced them. Those will be due late summer, early fall. We're just saying safely October this year. They could come sooner. But generally they're going to be looking at about late summer, early fall. The closer we get to that, more information we'll have, but they are coming. Now, the second ones that we just announced last month, or this March, those will be out next March, so about a year from now. And as we get closer to when the first run of Dash 9s are available, trust me, you'll be seeing a lot more here on Train Tuesday, as well as our social media platforms. And yes, you are right. Split Rock Conrail was born on April Fool's Day. Is that foreshadowing? Not really, because Conrail actually turned out to be a really well-run railroad. It was very profitable. Let's see. I got one more question. I'm going to go with Sean because he's got a good question. Jim, are you guys going to add the Amtrak 50th anniversary paint schemes to a P42 run, maybe in place of the Via Rail units? Well, that's a good question, and timing is everything. Now, for you guys that may not know, I believe last week or the week before, Amtrak has unveiled 6 new paint schemes for the Amtrak locomotives, 5 of which are P42s. Now, Amtrak, what they do is just kind of a way they can relieve on maintenance and stuff. When there's a locomotive that needs to be repainted, they get first dibs for one of these paint schemes. So that's what they've done. That's why there's 5 P42s and 1 Charger in the mix. These are going to be paint schemes that celebrate the past of Amtrak and the future as well. So definitely something to think about. And yes, we have P42s. In fact, the first releases that we talked about, they're going to be coming here pretty soon, I think. So, Sean, get your request in, and let's see what happens. All right. Fred, I see a question there. If you don't know, Fred, the parts and service in California has been moved to Illinois. We are in transition phase. There is so much stuff from 75 years of Athearn being around that it's taken a while for our guys to go through it all. And it's, I believe, in transit to Illinois. Once we get Illinois set up, we'll be able to help you out with your parts requests. Right now, we're just kind of in transition, so don't give up. All right. Well, guys, I want to thank you all for being here. I apologize. I don't know what happened to Fort Worth, Texas. Fort Worth kind of disappointed me because before we had all kinds of trains. So we didn't do any rail fanning. We did a lot of semi fanning and a lot of car fanning, but we didn't do any rail fanning. But I want to thank you all for coming in. And remember, go to atthearn.com, go to the website and select the Prime for Grime banner and check out the details. It's real easy. And just choose one of those box cars. Now, I will say this. Apparently, a lot of you guys are getting these painted up because I've already gotten an email from a few of you folks that say, hey, my hobby shop doesn't have it. Go online as well. There's still some shops out there that have these cars, and go ahead and get those in. You got till April 19th, and we want to showcase your stuff. We want to put your hard work on social media. I mean, everybody likes bragging rights. So go ahead, go check that out. In the meantime, you got a weekend coming up. Get some work done on your layout. Get some work done on your modules. We're going to start going to shows again soon. I can't wait. I want everybody out there to be happy, be healthy. And as always, till next time, high greens, everyone.